Welcome. This video is documenting the prediction that famous singer-songwriter Paul Simon of Simon and Garfunkel will slip and fall and severely injure his head on November 27th, 2025, Thanksgiving Day. And it is predicted that the news of this will be first reported on November 28th, 2025, Black Friday. The post date on the social media platform that you are watching this video on proves that this prediction is being made ahead of time, as does this time-stamped email and forensic notes PDF document. If you are skeptical for some reason, please email me and I will forward these to you. Make sure you watch this entire video all the way to the end. There's some truly profound information. Make sure you watch all of the video all the way to the end. All right, welcome. This video is predicting that famous singer-songwriter Paul Simon of Simon and Garfunkel will slip and fall and severely injure his head on November 27th, 2025. And the news of this is predicted to first be reported on November 28th, the following day. These 2 days are Thanksgiving and Black Friday. And this video is reading of this email thread that I have titled Cleveland Summit and the Debut or Return, as well, it should read Return also, /Return, of Barack Obama, January 20th, 2029. The beginning of the next presidential term, in which Michelle Obama will be the president and Barack Obama will be her vice president. This is known through God's true big picture of signs, patterns, and connections, which is only being explained on this channel, which will be proven to be true when this prediction for Paul Simon comes to pass. The date here, as we can see for this email thread, is November 18th. All right, and we can see here also November 18th. Now, it has been known for years, many years, that God is using, or rather, Paul Simon is very important in God's big picture of signs. And it was this summer that it was learned through God's signs that Paul Simon will actually slip and fall and injure his head. And there's really profound reasons why that is, which is explained in the other videos. I've explained it many times. Now, this video will focus on a particular thread or trail of signs that is truly amazing, that has been followed for many years. And so it's gratifying to see these signs from years back becoming relevant, because it wasn't learned until now, because the final pieces of the picture were not available. And so the relevance of these prior signs years ago, specifically involving LeBron James, are finally coming to their conclusion, and it's amazing to watch. It's amazing to see, and it's my pleasure to explain it to you. Now, so what happened was we had this sports sign on November 18th. Okay, number 23, LeBron James, debuted his record-setting 23rd season on November 18th against the team from the 45th state. And this was 23 plus 23 plus 23 days after Charlie James Kirk, I should say Charlie James Kirk, was shot in the 45th state. James took shots on the net. So God has been playing on how basketball shots are symbolic of shots from the sun, For example, the orange basketball is symbolic of the sun, and there's going to be a catastrophic solar flare, a shot from the sun, if you will, and also shots, and the mark of the Antichrist is shots, and on and on. So, all right, now, God pairs 9 and 23 together to confirm his signs and connections. He also pairs 9:23 with 44 as well. And I'm just going to play an older clip that I made a long time ago explaining how and why it is that God pairs 9 and 23 and 44. But first I'll just say that this is how God's true big picture of signs, patterns, and connections works. It works on the principle of second and third and multiple witnesses confirming a matter as the Bible says is required. And this is what makes what is being explained on this channel true and not a product of one's imagination, and different and unique than everything else on the internet that claims to be an analysis of God's prophetic signs. And if we think about it, one simple way in which God would provide a second witness for us is through pairing certain numbers together, such as 9, 23, and 44. And I know these are the numbers because I have been studying his big picture of signs, patterns, and connections from morning until night for more than full-time hours for more than 7 years. That said, the realization that these numbers were being used as the building blocks for God's connections between signs was realized very early on. In fact, in 2020. And so that's because they're the primary building blocks of the big picture of signs. And so it was necessary many years ago that God revealed this in order to develop his big picture of signs, which is only being explained on this channel. Now I'm just going to play a clip to explain some of the reasons why 9, 23, and 44 are paired together. God uses the number 23 to reveal the identity of the Antichrist, the basketball president who wore jersey number 23 when he played basketball in high school. In the Old Testament in the Bible, it is described how 2 goats were used on the Day of Atonement in the ritual on the Temple Mount. In Bible prophecy, there are 2 antichrists, and in Bible prophecy, it is said that the Antichrist will rule the Temple Mount during the end times period. And the Antichrist will be vanquished from the Temple Mount at the return of Lord Jesus Christ on the Day of Atonement in 2024. Goat is Antichrist symbolism. Goat stands for greatest of all time. And this is why the 2 goats of basketball wore jersey number 23, Michael Jordan and LeBron James. The GOAT of basketball, Michael Jordan, played for Chicago, and the GOAT Antichrist, the basketball president, is from Chicago. LeBron James is famous for being from Cleveland and having played for Cleveland and having won the NBA Finals championship for Cleveland, breaking the supposed Cleveland sports curse, which is Antichrist King symbolism, which is why LeBron James goes by the nickname King James. And this was used to point to the president Grover Cleveland, who was the only president to serve non-consecutive terms, skipping the 23rd presidency, just like the Antichrist will serve non-consecutive terms, having skipped the 45th presidency. In God's true big picture of end times signs, patterns, and connections, the number 9 is the most important number, as from the Bible it symbolizes God's judgment, and the number 23 is the 9th prime number, and the number 45 is the 9th triangular number, which in a triangle of numbers, the last number in the 9th row is 45. This is why Michael Jordan, in the exact middle of his career, after having won 3 NBA titles and before winning his other 3 NBA titles, retired briefly, and when he returned, wore jersey number 45 for coincidentally 23 games. And it is why Michael Jordan, in his last game as a Chicago Bull, another city God uses to point to the Antichrist, who is also from Chicago, scored 45 points against the team from the 45th state. Like Michael Jordan, LeBron James also played in Cleveland, then famously left Cleveland in much controversy, and then returned again to play a second time in Cleveland in order to win the championship for Cleveland and break the Cleveland sports curse, which symbolizes the Antichrist curse of Barack Obama when he will return to the White House for his second presidency. In other words, the hiatus in the middle of Michael Jordan's career in Chicago and the hiatus in the middle of LeBron James's career in Cleveland hint at the hiatus of Barack Obama skipping the 45th presidency and returning to the White House for a second presidency. It will be his third term, which is why Michael Jordan won 3 championships and then briefly retired before returning a second time to win 3 more championships. God pairs the numbers 9 and 23 together in order to confirm the signs and connections and to reveal the identity of the Antichrist, the basketball president that wore jersey number 23 when he played basketball in high school and became president in 2009, and will become the president again in 2023. From the Bible, the numbers 9 and 23 both symbolize judgment, and the number 23 is the 9th prime number. The only grandfather-grandson presidents were the 9th and 23rd presidents, William and Benjamin Harrison. The 9th president, William Harrison, died on the calendar date April 4th, 44, which hints at the 44th president. Harrison died exactly 1 month after his inauguration. The name Harrison hints at Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris will die in a plane crash due to a bird strike and lightning and turbulence in St. Louis. And the Antichrist Barack Obama will rise to power and become president again through her replacement, which is what is hinted at with the only president to serve non-consecutive terms, President Grover Cleveland, who skipped the presidency of Benjamin Harrison. The 23rd president, which is why LeBron James, who played for Cleveland, wore jersey number 23. Michelle Obama will first replace Kamala Harris, and then Barack will replace Michelle. Michelle is the feminine version of Michael, which is the reason for the name Michael in the name Michael Jordan. In the Bible, the Hebrews crossed the Jordan River into the Promised Land. Barack Obama's famous autobiography is named A Promised Land. Obama the Antichrist will promise the world a new world order utopia. A goat is Antichrist symbolism. The greatest of all time, the GOAT of basketball, Michael Jordan, wore jersey number 23 and jersey number 9 when he played for the U.S. Olympic Dream Team, a team that beat their opponents by an average of 44 points per game, which hints at the 44th president, GOAT Antichrist, that wore jersey number 23 and became president in 2009. If you have not already watched the Michael Jordan prophecy video on this channel, the Michael Jordan prophecy video is an essential video for foundational understanding of how God's true big picture of signs, patterns, and connections works. To confirm his prophetic signs, patterns, and connections, God frequently pairs the numbers 9, 23, and 44 together, as the number 9 is the most important number in God's end times warning signs, as from the Bible, the number 9 symbolizes God's judgment. The number 23 is the 9th prime number, and 2 divided by 3 equals 0.666, the number of the Antichrist in Bible prophecy. This is why the Antichrist, the 44th president, became the president in 2009 and was the basketball president who wore jersey number 23 in high school. All right, so number 23, LeBron James, debuted the season, his record-setting 23rd season, on November 18th against the team from the 45th state. Now, the 45th number is the 9th triangular number. In a triangle of numbers, the last number in the 9th row is 45. And as now has been explained, God pairs 9 and 23 together to structure his big picture of signs, to confirm the signs and connections. And this day that the number 23 player debuted and returned in his 23rd record-setting season against the 9th triangular number state was, and God repeats the number 3 times for emphasis of its symbolic meaning, 23 plus 23 plus 23 days after Charlie James Kirk was shot in the 45th state. James took shots on the net. So God is using as a theme in his big picture of signs basketball shots to symbolize, for one thing, shots from the sun. There will be an upcoming catastrophic solar flare. The orange basketball shot symbolizes this. A shot from the sun that'll hit Earth. Also, the shots are the mark of the Antichrist, which is why this connects to the shooting in the 45th state. Okay, this is why LeBron James's shots in his first game connect to the shot against the team from the 45th state, connect to the shot of James Kirk, Charlie James Kirk, in the 45th state. The name Charlie means freedom. James was the first disciple to be martyred. Charlie James Kirk was martyred. And Kirk, the name Kirk means church. Literally, this is what it means. The reason for this in this context here is that the Antichrist king will persecute God's church with the shots. And the nickname for LeBron James is King James. Now, James missed his first 7+7 games, or rather the first 7+7 games of the season, because he was out for his injury, okay? That's the story here. He had a hiatus, and he returned after his injury. This is a parallel with the hiatus that was just explained in the clip that I played, which is the point of LeBron James and Michael Jordan, who both wore number 23 and who are both the GOATs. The controversy of the GOATs is who is the GOAT, greatest of all time of basketball, Michael Jordan or LeBron James. There is a debate. But this is prophetic also because there are 2 GOAT antichrists in Bible prophecy. And what do I mean? Well, prophecy describes 2 antichrists, but in the ritual on the Temple Mount on the Day of Atonement, the date in the calendar on which the antichrists will be defeated at the return of the King of Kings, as in the return of King James, on the Day of Atonement, and the Day of Atonement is the 10th day of the 7th month. I'm jumping ahead. Never mind the 10th day of the 7th month yet, just for now. Now, so we have the 2 GOATs. Now, I jumped ahead. Well, anyway, the thing is I already recorded all of this, and the recording didn't work. It malfunctioned. So now I'm going over a material that I just went through in my mind, and it's confusing as to what I've already said and what haven't I said. But anyway, so James missed the first 7+7 games of the season. And this is because the day he returned, after missing the 7+7 games, was exactly 7+7 days after November 4th. Okay, and November 4th was exactly 1,260 weeks after 9/11, when Flight 77 crashed into Washington, D.C. where the Antichrist will dwell. The capital, this Flight 77, confirms this 7 plus 7 days. The reason for this extremely prophetic number of weeks from 9/11, no less, the big sign of signs, is that in Bible prophecy, the period of the Antichrist is symbolized by 1,260 days. It's a period of time. Here we have a period of time of 1,260 from 9/11, which, by the way, pointed to Barack Obama and King Apollyon, for example, because of Revelation 9:11. Revelation 9:11 describes King Apollyon, hence the King James connection here to 9/11. But the fourth plane that crashed killed 44 people when it crashed at a 40-degree angle into a 40-acre pit, 40 plus 40 miles outside of Pittsburgh. The demons and King Apollyon will rise from the bottomless pit. And that's the connection, which reveals Barack Obama, the Antichrist 44th president, and he will dwell in the White House, which has 44 plus 44 plus 44 rooms. God repeats the number 3 times for emphasis of its symbolic meaning. And the White House is located at 4 times 400 Pennsylvania Avenue, which is why 44 people died in the 4th plane crash in Pennsylvania. The demons, incidentally, will cross over the bridge into the earthly realm in that prophecy. And the plane crash occurred 40 plus 40 miles outside of Pittsburgh, the city of bridges. That's one of its nicknames. Okay. Now, also on or after 9/11, the Maasai tribe in western Kenya, where Barack Obama was born, donated to America 14 cows, 7 plus 7 cows. This was a mainstream news story because it was, oh, how cute. This tribe that doesn't understand the modern world donated 14 cows to America. But that was a judgment sign from God because it is a parallel with the 14 cows in the king's dream, the king of Egypt, that Joseph interpreted. The 7 healthy cows followed by the 7 sickly cows, which the king didn't understand the meaning of until Joseph told him the meaning of the dream through revelation from God. And the 7 cows of prosperity followed by the 7 cows of famine is symbolic of the 7 cows of famine are symbolic of the 7 years of end times, which is only symbolic in itself, which began, incidentally, at the beginning of 2025, which is why on New Year's Eve morning, Wednesday morning, 3 a.m., which is the title of Simon and Garfunkel's first album, was the attack, the terrorist attack in the 6 plus 6 plus 6 state. The number of the Antichrist in Bible prophecy is 666, in which 7 plus 7 people were killed. Okay, and anyway, that's another subject, which I explain in other videos. I just wanted to, just because we're talking about 7 plus 7 here, and also the beginning of the end times, symbolized by 7 years, it is only symbolic. Okay, now, there are people that believe that, or rather are looking for a definitive beginning that somehow, they're not really clear because it's not clearly thought out what they believe, but they believe some kind of vague thing about there being some definitive event that they'll be able to recognize and everyone who's interested in prophecy will recognize, etc. as to the official starting of the 7 years. But that isn't the case. It is only symbolic, as is the 1,260 days. And the purpose of this prediction in this video that is from God is to prove this. And make no mistake, I know far better than anyone the reason and purpose for this prediction that is from God, and why God has given me a voice through this prediction. It is to prove these controversial things that I am saying. And when the prediction comes to pass, there will be no debate. There will be no discussion, period, at all. It is a symbolic 7 years, and it has already started. So those that are wasting their time looking for such an official start date can better spend their time on something else, because you're mistaken, and it'll be proven to be true when the prediction comes to pass. And that's the purpose of this prediction. And again, I know more than you the reason and purpose for this prediction. Okay? And to not appreciate this is to miss entirely the point of this prediction that is from God, and the point of this video and video channel. If you aren't going to appreciate this, you are wasting your time. You might as well turn off the video now and go back to searching for the official start date. Okay? Now, that's also true for the evangelicals that love to play the Antichrist guessing game. It's really a game for them, and I call it the guessing game. And they do this out of their incorrect interpretation of 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, which is heresy and rooted in their false doctrine of salvation, in fact, but that's another subject. Now, when the prediction comes to pass, it'll prove this. But the thing is that God has been revealing through his big picture of signs for many years the identity of the second of the two antichrists, Barack Obama. And in my opinion, no offense, but it is shameful that any person claiming to be interested in Bible prophecy does not know that Old Testament and New Testament prophecy overwhelmingly identifies the first of the two antichrists as a pope. And there wouldn't have been a Protestant Reformation had it not been for this knowledge. And pretty much every Christian knew this until about 50 years ago, when it was conveniently lost right before the end times, so that people could be suckered into following the Pope, including Protestants or non-Catholics. Anyway, you need, in my opinion, to do some basic studying regarding the evidence, the prophecies regarding the Pope being the Antichrist. It's very clear. I'm not going to make this video about that. Maybe I'll one day make that video and list the things for people, but it's really out there already. Anyone should know this. And, I don't need to be so harsh, but it is confusing, and it is shameful that people don't know this, including, so-called experts like Chuck Missler. Everyone loves to talk about Chuck Missler and how wise he was, but no, he wasn't that wise. He was great. But a lot of the things that he talked about weren't his discoveries, first of all. And he lacked some wisdom, a lot of wisdom, actually. Okay? So anyway, the two antichrists are Pope Francis and Barack Obama, and in that order, not the other way around. Okay? The dragon antichrist, the one that speaks like a dragon, is Barack Obama, who became the president on his ability to deliver a speech, but that isn't how I know. That's just an interpretation. The big picture of signs prove it, and it'll be proven to be true, the big picture of signs, when Paul Simon slips and falls and injures his head on November 27th. And then it'll be case closed, okay? No more discussion after that. Feel free to dismiss what I'm saying now, but after November 27th, it's done, okay? It's time to stop playing the guessing game, okay? And do something more productive. And learn about the prophecies that clearly identify the Pope. Now, okay, so back to what I was saying. we have this connection to Egypt because, well, Barack Obama was born in, West Kenya. Well, okay, I already said that. So what do I need to say here? Okay, so this date, November 4th, was exactly 197 months after Barack Obama went down to Egypt. The prophecy in the book of Isaiah describes the Antichrist and begins this chapter begins with, woe to those who go down to Egypt and rely on horses, which incidentally is the reason for the American Pharaoh horse. That was the first to win the Triple Crown in exactly 444 months, as in the 44th president. Anyway, this chapter begins with, woe to those who go down to Egypt, and then describes the defeat of the Antichrist on the Temple Mount. But this is exactly what Barack Obama did after becoming the 44th president. He went down to Egypt, to Cairo, Egypt. By the way, he went to Cairo, Illinois, and delivered a speech as a senator, as a U.S. senator. That's something. That's not trivial. As a U.S. senator, you don't typically take trips to every small little town in your state, especially the one the size of Illinois. But it was prophetic, in other words, and that's because of the speech that he went to Cairo, Egypt to deliver when he went down to Egypt. After becoming the president, the first thing he did. And that was to tell the Muslim world that America is no longer a Christian nation. I mean, literally, that's what the speech was about. I mean, I'm not just speaking hyperbolically. That's what the speech was about. He went there to say, hey, come on, relax. Come on, America isn't the Christian nation that it once was. Give us a break. Don't, beat up on us. Don't hate us. We're not all Christians here. In fact, we're a post-Christian nation. So come on. That's the speech, all right? And that's because he's the Antichrist, because America has lost its way. In other words, he was speaking some truth. It no longer is a Christian nation in many ways. There are a lot of quote-unquote Christians still, and it's a lot better than other Anglosphere nations where there are basically no Christians, like Canada. And so anyway, but Canada is just a blue state. So you've got other blue states that are basically the same as Canada in terms of not having any Christians. Well, anyway, that's another subject. So the point is that this 197 months is the 45th prime number. And 45 is the 9th prime number, so it connects with the 9th superprime number. But again, we have this hiatus, and Michael Jordan, when he had his hiatus from wearing number 23 and in between his two sets of three, as in number 23, championships, he took the year off. He retired for a year and wore number 45 when he tried out for the team from Chicago for baseball. Okay, and so we have this 45th prime number of months from when Obama went down to Egypt to this November 4th date, but that's relevant because Egypt is about the 7 + 7 cows that symbolize the end times and the king Antichrist king. That's why the 7 + 7 days after this November 4th date, which gets us to the return of the King James, LeBron James sign. Okay, so I think I've explained all of that now. Now, if it is relevant, the top scorer in the Lakers' first game of the season was Butler. Anyway, when I write this, I'm writing to actually friends. So some of it's just notation. This is all notation actually. As I wrote in the first sentence, which I didn't read, this is really notation form of the insights as they came. So the San Francisco Golden Gate Bridge basketball team, with the logo of the bridge, as in the bridge from which the demons and King Apollyon will rise from the bottomless pit and cross over into the earthly realm, symbolized by Revelation 9:11. Well, the bridge team scored 119 points, which symbolizes Revelation 9:11. But this was against the Los Angeles Lakers, which since had fallen angels in the lake of fire. Okay, now. Okay, we have another story on this same day. It's another sports story. Well, and some people wonder, why God would use sports for signs. To that, I have to say, you have no idea. But if you think about it, well, what God is using in general is pop culture to communicate his signs. I mean, how else would he do it? He has to use pop culture, something that everyone knows, right? But he touches upon all basic. It's uncanny how it's uncanny to watch how God uses even the most obscure parts of pop culture. I'll give you one example. Irish line dancing, or there was the fishing tournament. Well, that was and the poker tournament, and that was a period of signs in which there was these biggest scandals in all of history involving these things, but they all occurred within a 10-day period. And the news media, the mainstream news media, even noticed the coincidence and wrote about it. But it always served a purpose because it timed with the breaking of Roger Maris's home run record by Aaron Judge. But that pointed back to how in 1998, the record was broken by Sammy Sosa and Mark McGwire, but they were cheaters. And so that's why all these cheating scandals occurred in these various sports like line dancing and poker, etc., fishing. Okay, we got way off subject there. But the point is that sports are very good for God to use signs because there's so much God can use within sports. From the numbers of the players to their statistics to the scores of the game to the cities that they're played in to the mascots of the team, etc. It's amazing. Now, so much can be used in a sports sign. But we have this player, Deion Sanders, a Hall of Famer, and his son is in the news because this is his first year, and the football world is kind of excited about it because it's the son of Deion Sanders, even though, truthfully, he's not that special of a player. For example, he was drafted 144th. That's nowhere near the top. But that's a prophetic number, 144, in Bible prophecy. Now, it's related to those who will be raptured, and they will be rescued. The raptured will be rescued from the microchip, which is what's inside the mark, which is already inside people who have already taken the mark. And that's a fact. Okay, the prediction will prove this. The thing was the mark of the Antichrist. It wasn't the supposed precursor to the mark of the Antichrist. Nowhere in Bible prophecy does it say one cannot repent, and so the vast majority of quote-unquote Christians have already taken it, but anyway. And anyway, the prediction will prove this, but the commonly held objections that people have based on their incorrect understanding of Bible prophecy are explained in the must-watch snake bite video on this channel. Anyway, God's using this pattern of Sanders and Sandra Day O'Connor and Sandy Hook and all that to point to the sand that is used in the production of the silicon sand that is used in the production of microchips. It took a long time to figure that out, the reason for this pattern of these sand signs. Well, here we have Deion Sanders, and his son was drafted 144th. Now, his name is Shadur. Do I have it written in? Yeah, here it is. That's the son's first name. There's a Shadur in the Bible. Okay? But the name of the meaning of the name Shadur is field of light, light of the Almighty. Shaddai is a flame. Okay? Okay. Stay with me. This video is going to get more profound as it progresses. I'm just building upon stuff here, okay? And I'm going through some stuff. Just trust me. Stay with me. Now, so the story is that Shadur played his first game. He got his first game of his career because the starting quarterback got injured. Otherwise, Shedeur probably wouldn't have ever started a game. In his first game, during the game, his home was broken into. Thieves broke into his home. And they stole, according to the news, $200,000 worth of stuff, which hints at the second coming of the thief, Jesus. As it says in the Bible, Jesus is the thief who comes in, when most aren't expecting him. But that's not to say that we can't know when he's coming. That's false. The most quoted verse in the Bible, no one knows the day or the hour, is a mistranslation and misinterpretation. And that verse is quoted as an excuse for people to not watch, which Jesus commanded. And also it flatly contradicts many other passages in the Bible. In other words, the doctrine of imminence is 100% false, and it is heresy, and actually it's satanic because it causes people to not watch. And well, why did Jesus tell us to watch? There was a reason for it. He commanded it a number of times. And the truth is that knowing the timing motivates people. It's just human nature. And also, Jesus is looking out for us because he doesn't want you to be caught off guard. That's why he said in Revelation 3:3, he says, therefore watch, for if you don't watch, I will come at an hour that you don't expect. Well, obviously, therefore, if we are watching, we will know the hour he's coming. So much for no one knows the day or the hour interpretation, which is not the correct interpretation. Because there's a parenthesis after that involving Noah. And Noah knew the precise timing of the impending judgment, and so did other servants. Furthermore, prophecy says that his servants, God does nothing without his servants first knowing. But why would we expect that his servants today would not know when his servants before knew? There's more to why that doctrine of imminence is not true. Let's move on. How did I get off into that tangent? Now, in Sunday's 23-16 score, Sanders completed 4 of 16 passes, okay? So that's 4 times 4 passes. The score, 23 to 4 times 4. Again, God pairs 23 and 44 to confirm his signs and connections. And if I recall, his jersey number is 4 plus 4 plus 4. Now, Cleveland is, the nickname for the city of Cleveland is the 6th city. There was a time in history when it was the 6th biggest city in America, but it wasn't just statistically the 6th city. It was nicknamed the 6th city. It really went by that nickname and still does. Now, 6 is 2 times 3, which ends at 23. Shedeur's debut, so this is another debut sign. This is why it parallels LeBron James's debut. This is the debut of Shedeur Sanders. So his debut on the same day as LeBron James's debut. Okay, LeBron equals Cleveland. Okay, as you saw in the clip, the big story about LeBron James's career is how he left Cleveland and then came back and then won the championship for Cleveland and redeemed himself. And then broke down in tears when he won the championship. And furthermore, he's from Cleveland, right? LeBron James is actually from Cleveland. He grew up in Cleveland, which made the matter so much worse when he left, which is why he became the villain, which is Antichrist symbolism. And where did he go? He went to play for the Heat, as in the devil in hell. Okay, so anyway, the thing about Shedeur is that he plays for Cleveland. His debut was with Cleveland on the same day that Mr. Cleveland, LeBron James, had his debut. Now, this date of their debuts, November 18th, is 3 years and 2 months and 2 days before they debut and return of the Obamas to the White House on January 20th, 2029. This is a pattern God is doing in his science. A 3 and 2 twos. Because it hints at Genesis 3:22. Why is that? Genesis 3:22 in God's signs is symbolic of the big lie at the end of the age, which will be the same lie as the first lie at the beginning of the age, when the serpent in the garden told Eve that she shall surely not die. There is coming a time very soon when it will be promised that those who take the mark of the Antichrist, the SHOT, will receive reversal of aging and immortality through transhumanism technology. Immortality without God, which is what Genesis 3:22 is about, which was what the lie the serpent told Eve is about. All right? The only way to eternal life is through Jesus. Right? So, why is this relevant to LeBron James? Well, again, he's the goat which hints at the goat Antichrist, who will enforce the mark of the Antichrist. But LeBron James wore number 23, and so did Obama, because the mark of the Antichrist will alter a person's 23 pairs of chromosomes. And they've already been altered, for those who have taken it, with snake venom. That's what the protruding amino acid chain is on the thing, you know the VIRUS, that protruding amino acid chain that makes the particular VIRUS characteristic. The particular characteristic of this, it's snake venom. Researchers have been researching for decades the medical benefits, possible medical breakthroughs of using snake venom. Well, they finally attached snake venom onto the bat VIRUS, which made the COVID. But the thing, the VACCINE, also uses this snake venom. That's the whole thing, right? That was the begins with an MR and then ends with an NA technology, yeah? That was all what it was all about. Inserting this, like CRISPR, into one's 23 pairs of chromosomes, marking them with snake venom. And the snake is the biggest symbol of evil in the Bible, who furthermore told the lie at the beginning of the age about immortality without God. Which is why this mark that puts the snake venom and marks people's 23 pairs of chromosomes will promise immortality without God. Well, that's why, anyway, number 23 for LeBron, and Cleveland being the 2 times third city. But we have the return signs here, connecting profoundly with the Antichrist's return. Okay, now, see, I told you it was going to get more interesting. The Cleveland Summit was all about 12 athletes. What am I talking about? One of the things that Muhammad Ali, or possibly the thing that Muhammad Ali is most known for, was his conscientious objection with the government. In particular, he refused to go to war and shoot people, as in shots, as in the mark of the Antichrist, that people will conscientiously object to taking and have already. what symbolizes the conscientious objection, which people will need to have because Bible prophecy says those who take the mark of the Antichrist are going to hell, which is why if you have taken it, you need to repent immediately. And Bible prophecy does not talk about not being able to repent, contrary to what some evangelicals claim. So, okay, so you will need to, and you should have already conscientiously objected to the mark of the Antichrist. So that's why the Cleveland Summit. Okay, that's why God is using this. It involved Muhammad Ali, one of the GOATs of boxing, greatest of all time. And so, but what's relevant here is that it was 12 athletes, because what happened was Muhammad Ali had this gathering of top athletes to come in a big publicity event, talk to him and give him their advice. He wanted advice as to what he should do, because he was faced with the possibility of going to jail and being kicked out of boxing, which he was kicked out of boxing, and he almost went to jail. Okay, so, but it was 12 athletes. That's part of the story. It's not just a bunch of athletes. In particular, it was 12 athletes. Okay. Shedeur, this player, like I said, wears number 12. The summit on June 4th, 1967 was exactly 70 months after the birth of the Antichrist, Barack Obama, on August 4th, 1961. That's prophetic because 70 years in the Bible is symbolic of judgment. The Israelites, the Jews were exiled to Babylon for 70 years. 70 months is also 2,130 days. And that hints at the book of Ezra, chapter 2, verse 13, which speaks of this tribe leader Adonikam, okay? And it says that there were 666 people that he led. Well, Bible prophecy says that the number of the Antichrist is to be calculated, and his number is 666. Well, when we calculate the number of Adonikam, who led the 666 people, we get, in simple English gematria, the equivalent of Barack Obama is 68. Simple English gematria is A equals 1, B equals 2, C equals 3. Barack Obama equals 68. In English gematria, Barack Obama is equal to 408. This is also what Adonikam is equal to in simple English gematria and English gematria. And this is a clever way in which God identified the Antichrist, because again, in the book of Revelation, it says that those who are wise calculate the number of the Antichrist. Will be able to know who the Antichrist is through calculating his number, which is 666. Well, to calculate a name is to convert it into gematria. Sorry, I'm not pausing because I am slow-minded today. I'm pausing because I'm tired and I'm out of breath. To talk for hours is just really too much. And so I have to actually just pause. I'm also speaking, relatively louder than I would normally, so that takes, energy also. So just bear with me, be patient. I'm not actually being slow-minded here. I just have to pause. Take breaths. Okay? Now. Okay. So on that note, I'm going to just play a clip here. I'm just going to show you something else as to how we can calculate the number of the first of the two antichrists. Because this is the way we know from the calculation Barack Obama. Because again, Adonijam leads 666 people. His name equals these numbers, as does Barack Obama. All right, now the title for the Pope on his mitre, for example, and on the other things, his crown, and his title in arguably the most important document in Roman Catholicism at the beginning of, well, anyway, it's Vicarius Filii Dei. That's the Pope's title, which means it's Latin for the vicar of the Son of God. In other words, the representative of the Son of God, which is blasphemy. God does not have a one-man representative. Jesus is the man representative of God. But this Pope claims to be, because Roman Catholicism is blasphemy. It's not a legitimate denomination of Christianity. That's not to say that Catholics won't be saved. But if they are, it will be in spite of their Catholicism and not because of it. Now, as you can see here, this is how we calculate the number of the Antichrist. 666. Because again, the prophecy says it's for those who are wise to calculate the name of the Antichrist through 666. Well, this is it. There's nothing that compares to this. Okay? No, King Charles is not the Antichrist. No, Emmanuel Macron, no. They are lowercase antichrists, and God has used them in Antichrist lowercase a signs, but they aren't the antichrists. Okay? And when the prediction comes to pass, the purpose of the prediction is to prove this. There's no more debate. Like I said, stop the guessing game. It's not King Charles. That man with his interpretation of the coat of arms, I mean, no. It's, in my opinion, not even interesting. But we know from prophecy, we don't need the coat of arms of King Charles. Okay, and also his prophetic signs, which we're supposed to be watching. That man who has the coat of arms interpretation is not a watcher of God's signs. If he were, he'd even know that King Charles is in his signs, but not to even a fraction of a fraction to the degree that Pope Francis and Barack Obama are. I mean, literally, 1 in 1,000 signs are King Charles signs. One out of 1,000 Barack Obama signs is a King Charles sign, okay? I mean, even less than that. All right. So there you have it. Case closed. The Pope is the first of the two antichrists, okay? Okay, so the 70 months between the Cleveland summit and Barack Obama's birthday, it also identifies Barack Obama because of the numbers, because it's also 2,130 days. And Barack Obama gives us the name Adonijam equivalent in the gematria. Now, LeBron James, number 23, missed the first 7+7 games. Cleveland equals 23 because of LeBron James. And again, it's the 2 times third city. But also, President Grover Cleveland was the only president to serve non-consecutive terms before President Trump. Okay? And he skipped the 23rd presidency, President Cleveland. So Cleveland equals 23 in God's signs, in other words. By the way, Cleveland is connected to Chicago, where Michael Jordan wore number 23, with the I-90 highway, which is a pairing of 9 and 23. Astounding, right? And again, Jordan wore number 9 when he played for the Dream Team, when they outscored their opponents by an average of 44 points. Pairing of 9, 23, and 44. Now, June 4th, 67, the Cleveland Summit was exactly 42 years before Obama went down to Egypt. Right after becoming the president, and again, the Antichrist goes down to Egypt in the prophecy in Isaiah, and that's what Obama did after becoming the president. And 42 months is symbolic of the period of the Antichrist mentioned 7 times in Bible prophecy. So that's why 42 years. It hints at all of this. So the Cleveland Summit connected with Cairo, Egypt, 42 years. And as I mentioned earlier, from this going down to Egypt, it's the exact 9th superprime number of months, or the 45th prime number of months, to the 11/4 date, which was 7 plus 7 days before LeBron James's debut and Shedeur Sanders' debut. One thing I forgot to mention, because I had said that I was getting ahead of myself, was that the 2 goat antichrists, which are hinted at with the 2 goats of basketball, are on the Temple Mount, or rather they will be defeated when Jesus returns to the Temple Mount on the Day of Atonement in 2031. And that's a fact. The purpose of the prediction will prove that. At the end of the 7 years, it began with the 7 plus 7 deaths, right? With the lightning and the Ford lightning truck attack in New Orleans, etc. The 10th day of the 7th month hints at the number 17. Or the other way around, I should say. And also in the New Testament, the beast is a metaphor for the Antichrist that has 7 heads and 10 horns. So we have the Antichrists symbolized by the goats on the Day of Atonement in the ancient ritual in Israel. And then also in the New Testament with the beast with the 7 heads and 10 horns. And 17 is 10 plus 7, the 10th day of the 7th month. Okay, so this date here, this 11/4 date, was exactly 17 years after Barack Obama went down to Egypt. Which was in turn, no, never mind. Okay, so back to what I was saying. So the day that Obama went down to Cairo, Egypt, was exactly 3,000 days to the Great American Eclipse that passed over Cairo, Illinois, the totality path, passed over Cairo and an area of the country nicknamed Little Egypt on August 21st, 2017. 3,000 days is astounding because after the Israelites escaped the king of Egypt in the book of Exodus, it was 3,000 Israelites that perished after their rebellion at Mount Sinai. So in other words, this 3,000 number is associated with the book of Exodus, which is about coming out of Egypt. And we have this connection from when Obama went down to Egypt to the Egypt eclipse. Because not only did it go over Cairo, Illinois, it peaked over Cairo, Illinois. Eclipses have peaks, and that's where it peaked. Now this day here was in turn 3,011 days to November 18th. And the return of LeBron James and his debut on the day of the debut of Shedeur Sanders. But again, it was 7 plus 7 days after the day that marked the 1,260 days, or weeks, I should say, from 9/11, and the dream of Joseph, the dream that Joseph interpreted in Egypt from the king of Egypt, was 7 plus 7 cows. And Joseph was the 11th son of the third patriarch, which is why God pairs 3 and 11 together. Which is why, for example, Coronavirus Day was March 11th, which was exactly 222 months after 9/11, which I shouldn't have said that because I'm not going to explain it, so I apologize. I explained it before. And so, again, Egypt symbolizes the end times because of the 7 years of famine in Egypt, in which Joseph presided over as the king. He basically was the king. I mean, he wasn't technically the king. He was a king, though. Anyway, and the king of Rock has his mansion in Little Egypt, in Memphis, named after Memphis, Egypt. And the king's palace is symbolic of the king's palace in the Bible. And the king who dwelled in the palace in the Bible is symbolic or a type for the Antichrist. I think the solution here is to talk more softly, because I can't talk at the volume that I've been talking at. It's slowing me down way too much, and you're probably getting annoyed with it. If possible, I'll see if my speech can be sped up by speaking more softly. Now, June 4th, 2009 was 3,000 days after August 12th, the eclipse, which was 3,000 days to October 7th. Okay, never mind this paragraph. It's a typo. It's a mistake, I should say. Okay, so here's the big conclusion here. This is amazing. Muhammad Ali, who was the man behind the Cleveland Summit, with the 12 athletes with the gathering of the 12 athletes over his decision to conscientiously object to the government with a legal threat of going to jail, which parallels the threat of going to jail for those in the future who will refuse to take the mark of the Antichrist. I mean, that already happened actually in Austria. It was actually illegal to not take it. And it was Austria because that's symbolic in God's signs, because that's the home of the Nazi Party and Adolf Hitler. And the Nazis experimented using things, needles, shots, which is what the mark of the Antichrist is. The CVD thing that people took was an experiment. It was a medical experiment. And if you didn't know that, wow, were you ever brainwashed? I mean, everyone, that's not even controversial. That was knowledge, right? It was an emergency youth authorization. It hadn't been tested. It was an experiment. You participated in an experiment on a technology that was never used before in history. And every time that it had been tried on animals, ended in disaster with the animals' deaths. But we were to believe that for the first time, it was going to work, and we didn't need to test it on animals, not yet alone test it for the typically obligatory 10 years to test for long-term effects, right? If you didn't know that it's an experiment, you are severely, severely brainwashed. You are not. I say that to help you wake up. Just pay attention. Just start getting the facts. Stop being hypnotized by the cult-ish movement that you are in. You are in a cult. What do people in cults do? They follow everyone else, and they don't question anything. Like, it was sick to watch how people didn't even know they were in an experiment. And how that was propagandized as being acceptable. So anyway, Muhammad Ali died on this date, June 2nd, 2016. What's very interesting here is that he died exactly 1,656 days before the first day of the mark. December 14th, 2020 was the day that the first American took this thing, this abomination, shot outside of a trial. That was the official start date. And if I recall, the woman's name is Sandra. So anyway, like I said earlier, Sandra, silicon sand, etc. Now, the thing about this December 14th, 2020 date also is that there was these two eclipses, the paths of which crossed over each other over Little Egypt, 7 years apart. 7 years is symbolic of the end times period in the Bible, like we've talked about already. And these eclipses, one went from essentially northwest to southeast, and the other went from essentially southwest to northeast. They engendered an X over America. The midpoint X over America was over Little Egypt. And also, the first eclipse peaked right there over Cairo. The second eclipse also went over Cairo, Illinois, and crossed over where the first one peaked, exactly. What are X's? X's are two straight lines that cross each other in their midpoints. The X over America created a midpoint over Little Egypt and Cairo, Illinois. And the middle date of these two eclipses was December 14th, 2020, the day that the first person took the X. Because in God's signs, the X is symbolic of the mark. Do you see? I just proved to you that the CVD thing was indeed the mark of the Antichrist. It's not a supposed precursor to the mark of the Antichrist. It does not need an additional something to go with it, such as an additional technology or false form of religious worship. In fact, for those who are wise, it did come with a false form of religious worship. And it does not need an additional supposed dispensation after supposedly all quote-unquote Christians will be raptured. In fact, one of the main reasons why the vast majority of quote-unquote Christians have already taken the mark of the Antichrist is it is in fact judgment for this particular doctrine, which Jesus says he hates and is coming to make war with the sword of his mouth on those that teach and have the works that are a product of this doctrine. Dispensationalism is the package in which cheap grace or free grace comes in, which is once saved, always saved, with its close cousin, sovereign grace, which comes in the package of Calvinism. And anyway, when the prediction comes to pass, it'll prove everything that I've just said. And that is the purpose of the prediction. If you don't appreciate this, you don't understand the point of this prediction. And you should turn off the video now. You are wasting your time. But you probably won't, because this is too interesting. And the reason why it is interesting is because of the prediction. But I know far better than you the reason and purpose for this prediction. Okay? There's no longer a time for these intellectual debates as to whether or not Calvinism and tulip and all that is true or not. It isn't. Okay? Now back to what I was saying here. on the same day as the first taking of the mark of the Antichrist, in the middle of the eclipses, which was an X, there was the 4.4 magnitude earthquake at Hawaii's highest peak that was 4 times 4 miles deep. Okay? Barack Obama, the 44th president, is from Hawaii. His name Bama means high place in Hebrew. So the highest peak in Hawaii. Okay? Now, let's see. Okay. All right. So, the thing about this 1,656 days is that it. Okay, sorry. The day that Muhammad Ali died was the same day as the peak of the once in 200-year flood in Paris, with the river in Paris, which is a place that God continues to use in his signs, this river, which, by the way, wow, it involves LeBron James, because LeBron James was involved in the prophetic sign, which was the opening ceremony of the Olympics in Paris, which was the parade of the boats down the river in Paris, and LeBron James was the flag bearer. He was on the boat waving the flag or holding the flag, and he played for Cleveland. Okay? And this connects with Muhammad Ali, who had the Cleveland Summit. Okay, now Muhammad Ali died on the same day as the flood, peak of the flood in Paris, the destructive flood that flooded the Louvre Museum, for example. And that day, June 2nd, 2016, was coincidentally the same day as the Middle East peace talks in Paris about what to do about Israel without Israel in attendance and Israel officially condemning the talks. But the arrogance of the world to discuss what to do about Israel without Israel is exactly what's described in Bible prophecy that will lead to the nations of the world getting destroyed at the very end, at the Armageddon, when they seek to destroy Israel. The apple of God's eye. And so, it's in Genesis chapter 12 that God says that the nations who seek, those who bless Israel will be blessed, and those who curse Israel will be cursed. So on this day, Paris was cursed because it was the location of the talks about what to do about Israel. Arrogantly, without Israel. Okay? Now, it's a flood, and that's why this 1,656 days. Because the flood at the time of Noah was 1,656 years after Adam. It's only symbolic. It's a story. I personally don't believe a literal 1,656 years. I don't criticize those who do, though, but no. And it's for the purpose of these numbers that God uses. Like this number. One of the purposes of this story in the Bible. And we get this number, by the way, through the genealogy, which leads to Noah, which is how we know this number. Anyway, the point is that God uses this number, and whether it be this number of minutes, days, hours, whatever. But this is relevant because the second witness to its relevancy is the flood in Paris, and this number is associated with the flood. That's why it's astounding that the flood in Paris, that was a prophetic sign, on the day of Ali's death, who was Mr. Conscientious Objector, to the first day of the thing that people conscientiously object to. The thing. Okay, now, God pairs 23 and 44. Well, the 4.4 magnitude quake, 4 times 4 miles deep, on the highest peak in Hawaii, was exactly 2 times 300, 2 plus 2 times 300 plus 2 times 300 days, which is also 600 plus 600 plus 600 days. And Noah was the age of 600 when the flood came. And this is from this is connecting from the flood, okay, to November 18th, when player number 23 played his first game of his 23rd season. Hence the 23, 2 times 300 plus 2 times 300 plus 2 times 300 days, which hints at 23, and that pairs with the 4 times 4 miles deep, 4.4 magnitude earthquake. See how the second witnesses confirm everything? This is how God's true big picture of signs, patterns, and connections works, which is only being explained on this channel, which makes it not a product of one's imagination and different than everything else on the internet that claims to be an analysis of God's prophetic signs. And now, as I mentioned earlier, 23 hints at the 23 chromosomes, hence the 3 years, 2 months, 2 days, which hints at Genesis 3:22, the lie regarding immortality through the transhumanism technology that will change people's 23 pairs of chromosomes, to the return of number 23, Obama, the basketball president, on January 20th, 2029. His debut return, connecting with the return of and debut of Shedeur Sanders and LeBron James. In fact, LeBron's number 23's debut was a return after injury, after time away hiatus, like Michael Jordan and LeBron James's hiatuses, which is what I discussed earlier. So you see here that the Cleveland Summit connects to all of this, to the return of Obama. The Cleveland Summit, the conscientious objection to, which is symbolic of conscientiously objecting to the mark of the Antichrist, connects to the debut and return of to the Antichrist, who will enforce the mark of the Antichrist on January 20th, 2029. This is amazing, beyond words. All right. Now, hopefully you made it this far. I'm going to explain this diagram here. That is one of the most profound things. It's so amazing. And bear with me, I'll explain it. It'll all be simple. It looks a little bit, complicated. It isn't. I'll just explain it as I go. I'll teach you this diagram. I believe I have an ability to teach this, so I'll make it straightforward. Anyway, so let's start with the date here that we were talking about, focused on, these signs here. November 18th, when King James, LeBron James, returned from the injury for his debut as number 23 for his record-setting 23rd season, was also the day of Shedeur Sanders' debut in the NFL. Oh, by the way, the name LeBron James is equal to 923 in Hebrew gematria. That's a pairing of 9 and 23. Okay. So God pairs 9 and 23, right? As I've explained. And that's why we have this King James sign here, number 23, 23rd season, 9 days before Paul Simon's predicted fall and injury of his head. King James returned from an injury. Paul Simon will be injured. Paul Simon is about Graceland, the King of Rock's mansion, which is why King James and the connection. Okay? Speaking of king, the Lion King and also King Jafar in the movie Coming to America, as in the Antichrist coming to America, and also the return of Jesus, but that's why there was a part 2. Anyway, James Earl Jones, the Lion King, died 444 days. That pairs with the 9, a pairing of 9 and 44, as I explained. God pairs 9, 23, and 44, okay? The 44th president was inaugurated in '09. To Paul Simon's injury. Now, and Paul Simon, again, is king symbolism because of, well, he also has a song, by the way, Queen of Corona. The chorus is Queen of Corona, me and Julio down by the schoolyard. But anyway, and also King Elvis covered famously Paul Simon's biggest hit, Bridge Over Troubled Water. Okay? You know, if you've watched other Paul Simon videos, I don't even need to explain this. It's just, you know, Paul Simon is king symbolism. But that's why we connect with James Earl Jones and LeBron James, King James. Okay? And it's astounding, this connection, the 9 days and the 444 days. But what further confirms this is that we have this 9th Fibonacci number. If you know what a Fibonacci, well, I'm not going to explain what a Fibonacci number is, actually. It's a series of numbers in which you take the last two numbers in the series, add them together to get the next number. Okay, I just explained it. Well, anyway, the 9th Fibonacci number, the number 9 is the most important number in God's signs. It's from the Bible. It symbolizes God's judgment. And that's why we have the 9th Fibonacci number in the 9/11 signs, because it was two planes that struck the two towers 17 minutes apart. 2 times 17 is 34. And the stock market number, was 0.34 points. So the close on the stock market number in the Dow was 9,605, which hinted at 9/11, because the 6 and the 5 equal 11. And that number was exactly 0.34 points above the previous day's close. Okay, well, anyway, also 2 times 17 hints at Genesis and the flood, because the flood began on the 17th day of the second month. And the flood is judgment symbolism, and so was 9/11. Also, Paul Simon, as if you've watched other videos, you know, is connected to this repeating Hebrew idiom in the book of Amos in the Bible for 3 transgressions and for 4, which is what is hinted at with 34. And by the way, on 9/11, it was 3 out of 4 planes that hit their targets. Another 34 on 9/11. That's because of the Hebrew idiom for 3 transgressions and for 4, which is about judgment. And it's a repeating idiom on the various cities and states, one of them being ancient Tyre, which is symbolic in God's signs of America. The reason why Tyre is symbolic of America is because the reason for the ancient Tyre's success was its divine protection due to its being protected by ocean all around it in the Mediterranean. It wasn't until Alexander the Great built the causeway from the mainland over to Tyre that it was conquered. Okay, so for 3 transgressions and for 4 is why Paul Simon's first album was Wednesday morning, 3 a.m. with Garfunkel. Wednesday is the 4th day of the week, a 3 and a 4. Also, 3 a.m. is the beginning of the 4th watch of night in ancient Israel. Well, anyway, it's exactly 340 weeks from this King James sign, the 9th Fibonacci, which pairs with the 23rd season for number 23, and also pairs with the following 9 days, okay, to get us to this date here. Well, what happened here? July 8th, 2019 was the day of the epic flooding in Washington, D.C., including flooding at the Washington Monument, which is important in God's signs. And there's flooding all over. There was flooding in the subway, and also flooding, importantly, in the White House and the Pentagon. The flooding caused the evacuation of the offices of the press, the media in the basement, and that was a judgment on the mainstream media, which is wicked and evil and are liars, which Trump called them out on, and Trump was the president at this time. And that's probably the thing that I love most about Trump. The first time I followed him in the campaign And right after the elections, when he was calling out the media, it was like, what? We finally have a candidate who calls the media out for its lies? I can't believe it. As Eric Metaxas says, we didn't even think we deserved or could even have a president like this before Trump. We didn't even think it was possible. So anyway, and also the flooding in the Pentagon was also prophetic judgment on America's security, like ancient Tyre, right? So, but it was at the Washington Monument, and the Washington Monument is 55 feet wide at its base and 555 feet tall. And that's why this date was 55 days after this date, which was another flooding sign in Washington, D.C. That was, and also at the Washington Monument. That was the day that the heritage tree fell at the Washington Monument. Right next to it. And that's because of the very wet soil that it was in that couldn't hold the tree due to the record 71.05 inches of rain Washington had received in the last 365 days. Well, that 365 days period that ended with May 14th, 2019, with the 71.05 inches, coincided exactly with Israel's 71st year. How is that relevant to America? America is God's Israel. Yes, that's correct. There are only two nations in the history of the world that were founded on a relationship with God in the Bible. God left Israel when the Jews rejected him and went to the Gentiles, and God's Gentile nation is America. America is an Israel. Okay? And this proves it. I just proved it. Because nothing symbolizes America more than Washington and the Washington Monument. Right? Arguably, right? There's more to that sign. It happened at, I believe, 9:30 a.m. was when the National Park Service tweeted about it. And that's because in Genesis 9:30, Noah became a man of the soil. And George Washington, after being president, was known for becoming a man of the soil, a horticulturalist. And the tree fell because of the soil being too wet. So you see, God's amazing, creative. Okay, this 55 days is also 11 times 5 days. That's amazing. That's why the monument is 55 feet wide. It's because it's 11 times 5. Okay? By the way, there was another sign at Washington's Mount Vernon estate in which 5 inches of rain fell in an hour and caused the collapse of the retaining wall, the security wall that Washington erected, which is, walls of security collapsing in God's judgment, symbolism. Well, anyway, and that by the way, that day that the wall collapsed at the estate was exactly 191 months after 9/11, when the buildings collapsed. And 191 hints at 9/11. But the wall collapsed also 5 plus 5 days after 5 inches of rain before the eclipse, which I talked about earlier in this video. Now, why does 11 times 5, why is that important? It hints at the book of Amos, the first chapter, which has 15 verses, in which is the repeating idiom for 3 transgressions and for 4. And that's why we have this 11 times 5 days followed by the exact 340 weeks for 3 transgressions and for 4 in Amos 1 with its 15 verses. Whoa. Do you see how amazing that is? Now, the White House has 44 plus 44 plus 44 rooms. This 55 days is also 440 plus 440 plus 440 hours. Because the 44th president will return as the Antichrist to the White House, which is why these signs in Washington, D.C. And flood, judgment, symbolism, right? Now, also on this day, the cheater in the Boston Marathon, the 84th marathon in Boston, died. 84 is the equivalent of the name Obama, I should say, in Hebrew gematria. Also, Barack Obama was born on the date 8/4. She died at the age of 66. The Antichrist's number is 666. And she cheated. Well, Barack Obama cheated. He was the unconstitutional president. He was born in Kenya. That's a fact. If you don't know that for some reason, the prediction in this video will prove this. And I know more than you the reason and purpose for this prediction that is from God. There's no debate. Do you understand there's zero debate regarding that subject when the prediction comes to pass? I don't care if you debate it now. You are highly mistaken and confused and basically lack knowledge or refuse to believe the truth because you love lies or whatever the reason. But there's no excuse after November 27th and the prediction for Paul Simon's slip and fall and injury. If you continue to love the lies, you are in real big trouble. I mean, you're already in trouble, and that's the purpose of this video, is to help you. But if you refuse to love the truth even after such a thing as this prediction, well, I don't know what to tell you. Well, I do know what to say, actually. The reason is you've built over the years a scaffolding for your worldview. Throughout the decades of your life, you have chosen to believe lie after lie after lie. But the thing is that the lies build on themselves, and you get to a point where your mind is so warped, your worldview is so untrue because of the initial lies that you chose. You built like this mountain of lies, and it's going to take a huge, massive, destructive thing in your life to be able to tear down that edifice that you've created over the years of lie after lie after lie that you've chosen to believe. You might be lost. There might not be any hope for you, even with something as a prediction like this, because you're just too far gone. Your mind is completely warped. It started way back when you were younger, and the lies that you chose to believe back then. Why? Because you loved unrighteousness. And that's the test of life. Whether or not you love truth and righteousness and justice, or love lies that disguise themselves as the so-called truth and justice and righteousness, but it's the opposite, because Satan's objective, his prerogative, is to invert things. As the Bible prophecy says, in the last days, good will be as bad and bad will be as good. Which is exactly where we're at. And these people that have fallen for these lies, they're not necessarily, the worst bad people. They're not even bad people. But they are in rebellion against God and the truth. And they are bad people because they collectively make up this system that is Antichrist. As Jesus says, no one is good, right? Everyone is going to hell. Everyone needs a savior, right? But the people that think they are good aren't. Not just because, some silly interpretation of the gospel that they think that is the case, but because they actually don't know how bad they are. Like, for example, if you've ever voted for the Democrat Party since the 1960s, you need to repent. And it's a very, very serious thing. For example, the party that supports abortions and is anti-God, has taken God out of their platform, right? Anyway, enough said. So what I was getting at was this cheater. I got off onto a tangent, yeah. So the cheating is also connected to, well, obviously the shoplifted referendum in the year 20 ending with 20. Okay, and I forget how this date connects to that, but I'm pretty sure it does. But that's another subject anyway. But the point is that Rose Ruiz, the winner of this 84, the one that cheated, won the marathon, but was found to be cheating. What she did, and I used to live in Boston, so I know I can picture this. She ducked into a subway and rode the subway down closer to the finish line. And then, jumped out of the subway station and back into the race. And thought she had fooled everyone. She did actually fool people for a while because she went on to do the same thing and cheated in the New York Marathon also. And I think that's how she got caught. Because I think, I might be mistaken, but I think it was because she was caught in the New York Marathon that she got caught in the Boston Marathon. So she was greedy. She wanted more, which is typical, right? Which is so typical of a thief and a cheater. They're not satisfied with just the one Boston Marathon. They're going to do it again and then get caught. So the thing is that, she died at the age of 66, exactly 60 plus 60 plus 60 years after the birth of John Rockefeller. And he symbolizes the thing industry because he's the pioneer of the thing industry. All right. And he also, his institute was the cause of the Spanish flu pandemic. Okay. With his experiments at the military camp in Kansas. That's a fact. I'm not going to explain it. It's a fact. That's the thing about this prediction here. I get the authority to say, you know what? I don't feel like explaining it. It's a fact. You can go look it up yourself. It's out there. You can find that information. But I'm going to tell you now it's a fact, okay? And it wasn't a respiratory virus. It was a bacteria. That's a fact. Okay? It wasn't what people thought it was. And also the supposed discovery of from the body that was kept frozen in the tundra in, I think, Finland or whatever, and studied by supposedly none other than Mr. Fauci. That's a fake study because he's the biggest liar, maybe second to Barack Obama, and skillful. He's really a mafia guy, is who he is. And his name Fauci means sickle in Italian, as in the sickle that harvests the grapes that are thrown into the winepress of God's wrath. Which is why he became head of his department, or head of the NIAID, exactly on the same day that the movie The Killing Fields was released. Do you understand? The killing fields, as in the sickle in the fields of the harvest. All right. Oh, and exactly 444 months later was when that thing got approved for 5-year-olds on the day that the World Series was won, with the final out being made by player number 5, Freeman. The abomination approved for the 5-year-olds. Anyway. And the team that won was Atlanta, which hints at the CDC. That's another subject, though. Sorry. Okay, but anyway, the 66 years age of this cheater for the Boston Marathon confirms the 6 plus 60 plus 60 years, right? That's how the signs work. Now, So we had the 9 days, the ninth Fibonacci number here with 340 weeks exactly, which was 2 times 170 weeks, by the way, which hints at the book of Genesis and the flood beginning on the 17th day of the second month, which is why it connects with 2 times 170 weeks to this flood in Washington, D.C. And then we had the 9 days, the ninth Fibonacci number, and then this 9 years exactly to this date. Well, what happened here? This was the day of the ESPN episode 1 hour special that the whole sports world was focused on involving LeBron James. The special was about LeBron James. It was titled The Decision. And they turned his decision as to whether or not he would return to Cleveland or not, or rather leave Cleveland or not, not return to Cleveland, but continue playing with Cleveland. They turned it into this 1 hour special to, make money. And anyway, the title of the episode was The Decision. And he decided to leave and then go play for Miami, right? And became the villain of the NBA. This is the Decision episode here. Well, why is this? Well, this was exactly 7 years after this date, July 8th, 2003, which was the launch of the NASA's Opportunity probe to Mars, the red planet. The red dragon in Bible prophecy is symbolic of the Antichrist and Satan. The Antichrist number is 666. This was 666 days after 9/11, when the fourth plane struck and killed 44 people, 44th president. In Pennsylvania, the White House located at 4x400 Pennsylvania Avenue. The 9/11 events were an exact Saturn return after the Twin Towers officially opened on the date 4/4, which hints at the 44th president. A Saturn return. The polar cap of Saturn is uncanny because it's in the shape of a hexagon. If you look at a picture of Saturn, on its north pole, it's a clear hexagon. And even the colors outline the shape because it's blue and then like cream color around it. But it's a six-sided hexagon. It's a 6. Saturn is symbolic of Satan in God's signs. It's got the ring around it. It's like, look at me, it's pride, right? But also it's the is it the 6th planet? Isn't it? Earth is the Mars is the 4th, right? And then after that, isn't it Jupiter and then Saturn? So that would be the 6th planet. Well, if it is, Well, anyway, it's a Saturn return. Like, in other words, the position of Saturn was exact, and it returns every 29 years. The position of Saturn was the exact same place on 9/11 as it was when the towers officially opened. Saturn is the 6-sided North Pole. 9/11 gets us 666 days to the launch of Opportunity. Now, 9/11 was the warning of the opportunity for America to repent and turn back to God, or else judgment and destruction. I forgot to mention, the Hebrew idiom for 3 transgressions and for 4 means the tolerable limit of transgressions has been exceeded and now judgment and destruction are unavoidable, which is what will be communicated when Paul Simon slips and falls and injures his head and then dies. Because Paul Simon is associated with 9/11. He opened the first broadcast of Saturday Night Live in Manhattan 4 days after 9/11, when the 4th plane crashed and killed 44 people. He opened the broadcast with the performance of The Boxer, and boxing is about knocking the opponent in the head so that they collapse onto the mat, like the towers that collapsed, and how Simon is predicted to collapse and hit his head. His 4th Garfunkel album bookends contains the song America, and his death will be the bookend to the opportunity that America had that has slidden away, as in one of Simon's songs, to repent and turn back to God. So this opportunity probe hints at that. And then we have the exact 7 years, which is symbolic of the end times period in Bible prophecy of the period of the Antichrist, 666, to the decision. America's decision, in other words, or rather God's decision also, of judgment. And America's decision or not whether to repent and turn back to God after the warning on 9/11. So 9/11, the warning, and then the symbolic opportunity, and then the decision. What does it lead to? It leads to the Antichrist. The cheater. Okay, this opportunity probe was launched exactly 4 times 4 years, as in the 44th president, before the flooding in Washington, D.C., where the 44th president is the Antichrist. And again, 9 years, the number 9 symbolizes judgment. We have the 9 years from the decision to the flooding, which is symbolic of judgment. And then the 9th Fibonacci number, it's a flood, 17th day of the 2nd month, 2 times 170 weeks, 3 transgressions and for 4, 340 weeks, to the return of King James, another basketball James sign, as in the decision back here. Okay, connects to the 9 and the 9, okay, to the 23, pairs with 23, and then 9 days to the slip and fall of Paul Simon, the prediction. Okay. Now, the thing is, LeBron James's decision here was 400 days exactly after Barack Obama went down to Egypt, which is amazing because 400 symbolizes the Israelites in Egypt. They were persecuted and afflicted for 400 years before they escaped the king of Egypt, the Antichrist, the king of Egypt is symbolic of the Antichrist, or the king of Egypt is a type for the Antichrist. And this Antichrist is described when he went in this chapter about going down to Egypt, which Obama did on this date after he became the president in 2009, and then it's 400 days, okay? Now, this going down to Egypt was also 62 times 7 months exactly to the official opening of the Twin Towers. This is from the most central prophecy in the Bible, Daniel chapter 9, regarding the period of the Antichrist, okay? But this day also is exactly 2 times 3 years, which hits at 23, to this date here, June 4th, 2015, when LeBron James, after he had returned to Cleveland, was playing the bridge team, the San Francisco bridge team, which is prophetic, because the bridge over troubled water and the demons will cross over the bridge from the demonic realm into the earthly realm, as I explained in the other videos, okay? So this day was game number 1 of the NBA Finals, and LeBron James scored 44 points. But the story of the news was that it was claimed in the media that the strategy of the San Francisco team, Pope Francis is the other Antichrist, by the way, the strategy was to let LeBron James score his points and focus on defensively covering the other players. To which LeBron James scoffed at that idea after the game. But anyway, he scored 44 points, and that confirms the 2 times 3 years, which is 23, a pairing of 23 and 44. Right? Now, this game also was exactly 4 times 4 times 4 times 4 weeks after his decision, which was 400 days after Obama went down to Egypt. The 44 points was 4 times 4 times 4 times 4 weeks. Okay? In other words, 4 to the power of 4, another 44 in itself, after the decision by LeBron James to his 44-point game. Now, this 44-point game is very prophetic, and I'll prove it with the connections that if I haven't proven it already, which I have because of the second witnesses here. But It was also exactly, and this is how I first discovered it, because I knew this date and then subtracted this number from it. And then got this. This was back before even this date. In early 2019, I was just playing around, and I knew that God was pointing to this 71st anniversary of Israel. And so I thought, well, because of the record number of 1,440 Jews on the Temple Mount that had been on the Temple Mount recently, I thought, well, what if we subtract that number? Turns out that this number in the Greek concordance, G 1440, is the word 70, which is extremely prophetic. And again, the Jews were exiled to Babylon for 70 years. It's judgment. And also, this is Israel we're talking about. But also, like I said, this date here is this date here, like I already explained. This was the day that the heritage tree collapsed at the Washington Monument after the record-setting 71.05 inches of rain in the previous 365 days that coincided with Israel's 71st year. Okay, so that gets us to this. And then this gets us, like I said, 11 times 5, Amos chapter 1 with 15 verses for 3 transgressions and for 4, which is then 340 weeks to this, and then so on. Okay, now there's one more thing to do here, and that's to go back to down here. This 44 points, that was exactly 2 times 3 years after Obama went down to Egypt, the 44th president, after becoming the 44th president, was exactly 1,260 days, which is this period of time, symbolizes the period of the Antichrist in Bible prophecy mentioned 7 times, to this date here, November 15th, when LeBron James scored 44 points again, and on the same day became the 4th all-time scorer in the NBA history. Well, how do you become the 4th all-time scorer while scoring 44 points in the game? Obviously, that's from God, especially given that it's exactly 1,260 days after the other 44 points, which was also a major news story. Because like I said, it was game 1 of the NBA Finals, and because the accusation was that the team let him score the points. A form of cheating almost. Symbolism for that. Well, anyway, this 44 points and him becoming the 4th all-time scorer is exactly 4 times 4 times 4 times 40 days before player number 23 began and debuted and returned for his 23rd season. Astounding. A pairing of 23 and 44. That again is paired with this 9, which confirms this in itself. And on and on and on. The 44 and 44. All you see in the diagram. The 9th Fibbo, the 444 days here, confirms this 9 days, which in turn confirms this, which in turn confirms this. To the 44 points and becoming the 4-time all-time scorer. And what's really gratifying here too is that I finally know how this connection fits into the big picture. Because I've known about this, 1,260 days for years. But, never knew what to do with it until now. It's so amazing. One last thing. Paul Simons predicted slip and fall, an injury of his head, is predicted to be, is this number of days, 1,150 days to the return, debut of the following presidency, of the return of the Obamas to the White House. 1,150 days is a period of time in Daniel chapter 8 regarding the period of the Antichrist. It hints at Amos 1 with its 15 verses for 3 transgressions and for 4. And we have the 9 days connection following this 340 weeks connection, which follows the 11 times 5 days. So you've got the 11 times 5 days connecting with this 1,150 days. Same meaning. It's the same meaning. And 9 symbolizes judgment. And again, for 3 transgressions and for 4 means the tolerable limit of transgressions has been exceeded and now judgment and destruction are unavoidable. judgment and destruction are unavoidable. When Paul Simon dies, it'll be the bookend to the opportunity to repent and turn back to God that was warned of on 9/11. And we have along the way the opportunity probe, the decision, and all of this LeBron James, which points all the way back to the decision. And on this day also the quarterback from Cleveland debuted, right? And it's all about the Cleveland decision here. And so all this LeBron James stuff here connects 9/11 through the GOAT of basketball, which hints at the GOAT of basketball president, GOAT Antichrist, to his return. And LeBron James returned to Cleveland, which is why this sign right here, when he came back to try to win for the Cleveland Cavaliers and then did, breaking the supposed Cleveland sports curse, symbolic of the curse of the Antichrist, it all points to the coming curse of the Antichrist. Through LeBron James and through 9/11 and the opportunity probe and the decision episode. It's astounding. And it also connects to Rockefeller even, because of what the Antichrist will do, which will be enforce the mark of the Antichrist. The thing that Rockefeller started. What you are looking at is truly profound. I don't know how else to put it. Believe me, I know far better than you how the prediction made in this video was derived. And more importantly, I know far better than you why the righteous Christian God of the Bible has given me a voice through this prediction. If you are a quote-unquote Christian or Muslim, this prediction was not learned through a demon. Be warned that blaspheming the Holy Spirit is the unforgivable sin. If you are a New Ager or New Spirituality person, this prediction was not learned through somehow tapping into the supposed universal collective consciousness. If you are a conspiracy theorist, this prediction was not learned through figuring out a supposed code that the Illuminati and Satanists are using. This prediction was learned through the Bible and through watching carefully the Lord's prophetic signs, which Jesus commanded all Christians to do. Besides proving that Jesus Christ is the Lord, the reason why God has given me a voice through this prediction is to prove that the controversial things that I am saying in the videos on this channel are the truth. Therefore, a wise person will want to watch all of the videos on this channel. What I will also do is create a video or two that summarizes some of the controversial things that the Lord will prove to be true when the prediction being made in this video comes to pass. I will leave links to these must-watch videos in the description box below this video. Again, the purpose of this prediction, that is from God, is to prove these things that I will talk about. And therefore, it would be foolish to not watch the videos that I will leave links for in the description box below this video. Aliens and UFOs are demons masquerading as aliens and UFOs. Most people's spiritual experiences are demonic deception, especially if they are not a true follower of Christ. In the last days, many people who claim to be a follower of Christ will have spiritual experiences that are in reality demonic. God became a man and died a horrible death at the hand of the ruler of this world, Satan, and then defeated death for you, so that you too can overcome death, which is the price that must be paid for sin. It is time to repent, which means to change one's ways and turn to God and become a disciple of Jesus. Do not listen to or follow the example of most quote-unquote Christians. Instead, follow the teachings of Jesus, which most quote-unquote Christians ignore. Like Jesus, you must surrender your life. Put nothing ahead of Jesus, your Lord. Like Jesus, you must lay down your life so that you may live. As Jesus said, one must die first, like a kernel of wheat going into the ground, in order to then grow and produce fruit. And like Jesus said, one must produce fruit, or else like a branch or a tree not producing fruit, they will be thrown into the fire. Jesus was speaking to quote-unquote Christians when he said this. One must die the self in order to be born again. And like Jesus said, one must be born again to enter the kingdom. Like Jesus, you must sacrifice your life for the sake of the coming kingdom. It means to do work that involves some form of sacrifice and risk. To have faith does not mean to intellectually agree. You need to demonstrate your faith through taking action. To have faith means to trust in God's promises. Taking action demonstrates trust and fear of the Lord. The primary reason that the wrath of God is coming upon America is quote-unquote Christians that do not get what I have just explained. The only reason a Christian is alive is in order to help other people become Christians and make it to the kingdom. Do not be deceived by those on the political left claiming to be quote-unquote Christians. There is no such thing as a Christian on today's political progressive left. Jesus said, "Do not think I have come to abolish or change any bit of the law or the prophets of the Old Testament Bible." In other words, the God of the Old Testament Bible is the exact same God of the New Testament Bible. It is essential that you learn about the God of the Bible and his ways. The God of the Old Testament Bible is looking to see who will fear him, and to fear God is not the same thing as quote-unquote revering or honoring God. Through Christ's ransom payment, a Christian is someone who has been redeemed and freed from slavery to sin and Satan. In response, a true Christian recognizes that their life in this world does not belong to them, and they become a willing slave to Jesus for the sake of the kingdom. Please leave a like and upvote the video, and once this prediction has come to pass, share this video with everyone you know, and more, don't stop sharing it everywhere in social media. And don't only put the link to this video or another video on this channel in comments sections of places you typically visit, but importantly, put the link to the video in places you never visit, where people who don't think like you visit. If you are a quote-unquote Christian, nothing in terms of an evangelism tool compares to this video with its prediction. It is a massive bag of gold. Beware of Jesus' warning through the quote-unquote Christian that did nothing with his bag of gold and was banished to hell. Also, read Ezekiel chapter 3 and 33 for this same warning. If you think you might be spending too much time watching videos instead of working and sacrificing for the kingdom through handing out flyers and potentially helping hundreds of people in the same length of time as a video, my flyer is filled with amazing information that people need to know right now, and it points people to the video channel. Now is not the time to be handing out typical evangelical tracts that are largely based in error anyway, such as, quote, Jesus loves you, unquote, for example. You can hand out the flyer on busy street corners, put them on car windshields in busy parking lots, and put them in mailboxes. Just send the file to your local print shop. You can download the file from the website. Please leave a like and upvote the video, and once this prediction has come to pass, share this video with everyone you know, and more, don't stop sharing it everywhere in social media. It is essential that everyone immediately read the homepage of my website, asteroidprediction.com. If you are watching this on the YouTube platform, please note that not all of the videos are on YouTube. You need to switch to the Odyssey.com or Rumble.com channel, and do it now in case you aren't able to later.